The way you're treated by society is just devastating. People in the neighbourhood, because my child was acting like this, they looked at me like I was just the scum of the earth mother, as did my family. You know, and then when you find out what's wrong with your child, why they're acting like that, why it's food chemicals and other chemicals that are affecting their behaviour, and you'd ask them, look, please don't use this because we don't want him exposed to the chemicals, then they would abuse you or stop seeing you because you'd ask them to do that. So no matter what you did, you were damned if you did, you were damned if you didn't. Multiple chemical sensitivity is chemical injury, chemical sensitivity, MCS. It is an illness caused from chemical exposures, differing levels of chemical sensitivity through from mild to moderate to extremely severe and totally debilitating. Our view on chemicals before James was like most of the population. We had no idea. My father used to use pesticides. My husband and I, used chemicals in the home of all sorts. We truly had no knowledge. He wasn't particularly sickly, but he did have a violent reaction to his second triple antigen vaccination at 4 months of age. Then he became sick all the time from then on. Soon after the vaccine, he was screaming this violent, high-pitched scream that he couldn't stop. His whole body would arch and just jerk, projectile vomiting. His ears were bright red, I remember that specifically as well, and shocking diarrhoea as well as the projectile vomiting. But the screaming was just awful. I did make a terrible error of judgment again as a parent. I let him be vaccinated for his school entry. I shouldn't have. A lot of guilt there. And also in the year after, about almost 7 I guess he would have been, we had our home sprayed for fleas twice. I look back and I think I was one of the ignorant people. I didn't have any knowledge that these are dangerous chemicals, and that was when I myself suffered the effects of the pesticide. I couldn't stop crying, and that I continued crying. Look, it would have been at least 3 years or more. And my son's behaviour deteriorated. He was becoming violent and psychotic. James's reactions were extensive at times, extreme. He would have the most destructive headaches, I guess would be the only way I could describe it. As a tiny little boy, I'd be bathing him and he'd say, "Mummy, if you don't stop these headaches, I'm going to kill myself. I can't stand it." Sometimes he would have a reaction up to 20 times a day where he would just not only be so ill, but then the behaviour, he'd tear the place apart, throw things, destroy furniture, break things, put holes in the wall. He was very skinny after a doctor started him on Ritalin. That was a specialist in Sydney. I did tell that specialist that he reacted violently to the vaccination, and he just said, like all the other doctors, oh, it wouldn't have been that. Some of them had the gall to blame me as an ineffective parent. One said I was psychotic for keeping diary notes of my son's conditions. Another one just said straight out that he's a spoilt little shit and I had to learn how to control him properly. The doctor of environmental medicine who saved my son's life is Dr. Barry Ryan. He's well respected around the world for his knowledge of environmental medicine. He did a lot of testings, of course, and sent different samples even to a lab in Melbourne, I think it was, and he was chemically overloaded. And we'd gone to other testings as well, and he was definitely suffering from multiple chemical sensitivity. He was chemically injured. When we realised it was chemicals harming my son, your whole life has to change. Everything that you did before is now different. You do truly have to remove all the chemicals from your home and not use them. You have to try and ensure that people that are coming to visit you don't have dry clean clothing on, or pesticide contaminated clothing, or perfume, etc. It's a huge process, and a lot of times you lose your family. It's affected my life to such an extent where you don't have your own life. It just takes everything from you because your life is consumed protecting your child or the person suffering chemical injury, MCS. James passed the time after leaving school when he was 10 by surviving. That was the key to get him to survive, to cope, because it took a long time for him to detox before his physical illnesses as well as his terrible behavioural problems eased off. It took years. But those chemicals remain in the body and brain for such a long time. I have started getting this website together just a few years back, but that was after about 19 years of work since my son's, or 18 years, since my son's violent reaction to the vaccine. I did a lot of work in that regard. It actually was the parliamentary inquiry in South Australia into MCS. That's where I did a lot of work on that and spreading it around the world, and that's where at the same time I thought I've got to give birth to this baby. Global recognition campaign, and that's where it came from, MCS Global Recognition Campaign for MCS and chemical injury. I wanted personal stories up there, real stories as we call them, as a way of getting the population to understand that these are ordinary people just going about their lives who have been struck down by chemically induced illnesses and diseases. People, if they can just become aware of what they're using in their homes, what chemicals they're using, what chemicals they're exposed to at work. And chemicals we mean in personal care products, perfume, cleaning agents, pesticides. everything like that. People really are exposed to hundreds of these things every day, and they just don't realise, and they're not connecting the dots, that their illnesses and symptoms very well may be caused from chemical exposures. My final words are, please, everyone, when you see this website, just know that it's real, respect it, respect the data that you see on it, act on it, and embrace it. Choose and use chemical-free alternatives to everything you can in your life, and don't end up a statistic like the people on this website and millions of others around the world, please.